Welcome to the podcast Stories of Wholeness. You'll find stories from people who have chosen to look deeper within themselves. They have been brave enough to start revealing their inner wholeness and cultivating natural inner resources. This way, they are able to share their true gifts with the entire world.
Hey, my name is Ilze, and I welcome you to this podcast, Stories of Wholeness. Today I'm having a very nice and inspiring conversation with Joana. Joana is a 26 years young woman from Portugal. Before 2018, she was a videographer and a photographer. But during a training course in Romania, she reconnected to her body and her own voice. After that, Joana started realizing that her place was in front of camera, not behind it. And now, Joana is helping others to embody who they truly are as a therapist and mentor. To me, this is a courageous story of opening up and maturing. From a girl who didn't speak to this amazing, passionate woman who is okay with meeting her shadows and seeing her own light. Within the next 30 minutes, I invite you to feel the power of being afraid and doing it anyway. Enjoy.
It's so nice to welcome you on the podcast, Stories of Wholeness. And I'm really happy to have you here as the first podcast guest. So my first question is to you. Who are you today?
It's actually very interesting because normally I ask this question to people. Now I'm the one being asked. Okay, who am I today? Today I'm a Joana that actually is finding balance in all areas of life and also within myself. Like I'm a Joana that actually managed to find this balance, to not be too much in the masculine and not giving space to the feminine, and like more balanced also inwardly. I'm a Joana that is actually starting to live from her own potential, you know. I'm like, my soul mission is actually happening.
I think it sounds perfect for the beginning. Yeah. And maybe you can then share a bit of the story, how you have come to this. Who are you today? What has been your journey?
Oh, okay. From when?
From when you feel like that something changed in you.
The time that something really changed in me, like some things were happening and some things were changing, of course, but this time that really marked a point in my life was a training course I did with Sandra in Romania. That was reality crafts, and it was really a turning point in my life, actually. I came in contact with a lot of things I wasn't aware, I didn't know, that I never was exposed to, and they resonated. And I brought from it movements, like actually not just movement, but the contact with my body. Because before that, I was over-identified with the mind, and I brought this thing of putting the mind aside and just listen what my body wants to do. And it was the first time that ever happened. And from then, this was in 2018. And from then, since then, I have been developing these, and now I'm even facilitating movements. So that was one point. Other point is that I realized officially that I see auras, and then I became an aura reader. Another point was also that I realized I had an inner sound. I realized I actually had a voice, and I didn't know I had a voice, and that I maybe could make sounds and singing, and For me, it was also like I thought I wasn't singing. Come on. But then I realized like there was a voice and the sounds coming from within me, you know. And also the fact that we were like eating vegetarian food for like 10 days. It was my first time actually, and I felt the effect of it in my body, in my energetic field, in who I am. I felt like cleaner and lighter and more expansive, and it was actually very interesting to to come across with these things that I wasn't aware and realize the effect they had on me. And also from this training, I had to bring what I learned to Portugal. So I had to make a workshop, which was also something I never thought about. I never saw myself doing a workshop. Because for the record, I was the girl that didn't speak. I was the girl that was afraid to speak. That's I really repressed myself a lot in a phase of my life, through voice, through movements, my personal power, all those things. And I had a depression at 12. And then I think after that, like my life has been a process of opening up and taking the shells away, the protections, and expressing myself. So this course took a part on it for sure. And making this workshop, I was like, okay, I have to do it. Let's do it. I loved what I learned, and I loved how I feel with it, and the things I brought to my daily life. It's not just something I learned and stayed there. And in the workshop, they told me, okay, I don't have much hopes because normally to these workshops came 3-6 people. But our workshop, it was me and one of my colleagues, it had 16 people. It was supposed to be 3 hours. It turned out to be 5. People wanted more. They wanted the weekends. After that, the organization here in Portugal in which we did the workshop, which is Rota Jovem, they invited me also to make this weekend happen. And we got like a kind of founding. We got a founding. We managed to have like 12 youngsters and to make this workshop for 3 days, like a kind of retreat. And they wanted even more. They wanted a week. So I was like, okay, noticing not only the feedback, but also the way I felt. Because from something I really thought I would never do, I felt comfortable. I felt like in my own place. And it felt good to share those things with them. And I started to learn more and more and more. And it evolved in my own projects. And now I'm really making retreats and following people, like accompanying them and helping them to see themselves, to express themselves and to be who they are, to embody who they are, to take away the masks and the things that they convinced themselves that they were. The same way I convinced myself that I was a shy girl. And a lot of other things that I have been taking these layers out to see my true self and what I meant to do. I think that was the journey until here.
So the kind of a turning point that you're referring to is the training course in Romania in 2018, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So can you share what helped you to open up and to explore these other parts of yourself?
The opening up started like 14 years ago. So in this training course, I just discovered new parts of it. But
can you share which resources you found out in yourself?
Yeah, it was as I said, it was movements, the contact with my body, because I kind of forgot I had a body. Like I was the mind and I was using the body. And then I understood, come on, I'm also the body. Actually, within this body, there are several bodies, and I'm also this physical body. And and also the part of the voice, that I had a voice. I also felt, by doing all the exercises, I felt much more like, how can I look into all the parts of myself? Because we were introduced to this map of wholeness, right? So I understood which parts there are in my psyche, and how can I actually kind of be in contact with them and acknowledge them, what they are, and are they present in my daily life, and how can I manage them to be balanced. So it was kind of that. But even before, I was in Erasmus when I was in university, and that was also, I think, not the first, but that was also a turning point, because it was the first time I was actually living abroad, leaving house in a different country, in which I basically didn't speak English, and my friends even worse. So I had to speak for me and her for herself. Being in this different environment and in a short span of time, like 6 months, is being exposed to so many people, so many backgrounds, so many stimulus of cultures, and so many situations. I understood that I was learning with life, because by being exposed to so many things and just risking, because it's like risking into the unknown, it was what I did when I stepped into going. Being exposed to so many things allow me to understand a lot about myself and about life. Because how do I cope in a certain situation? What do I like? What I don't like? How do I follow my intuition, actually? Because I noticed myself like just seeing some random way and let's just go. And actually finding things I would never see. So I think this was really like the most opening part. And from then on, I started taking the courses, and then I went to reality craft, which was also the turning point in which I became aware of, like, it was not just really learning things, it was more also like actually going within. That was something that really resonated with me. That's also why I applied in the first time, because it was what was happening with me, and I found a place and people that helped me to go within me. Because one of the things I really learned throughout these years is that I was really enjoying traveling the world, of course, and it was amazing. But then I understood that the most meaningful and life-changing travel is the one within me, no matter where I am. I guess my focus has been on traveling into my inner traumas that I wasn't even aware I had. And actually, the process of traveling within myself is like a process of digging and investigating and finding out what is here, to be seen. It was also this process of finding out what is here to be seen, what wasn't seen, what hasn't been seen throughout my life. Situations, parts of myself, emotions, and allow myself to actually feel them. But from a perspective of I'm here in my center, I'm just allowing myself to feel what I have to feel in order for it to be transmuted, but not over-identifying with what I'm feeling, because I know it's not from now, it's something from before. When we don't feel things, like emotions are actually, they're not good or bad, right? They just are emotions, and they have messages for us. And only when we have the courage to actually feel them and express them, we can step into this message with the lesson that they want to bring us. So this is the process I've been like doing. I have been traveling also through my teenager years and childhoods, but especially teenagers, because I had a lot of things there to acknowledge, to see. And also all these parts brought me to explore other parts of myself, like understanding what my shadows are. Until I realized that what I was most afraid was not my shadows, was my light. And that's a common thing that I realized and I learned, that, we are actually comfortable with our shadows. We are kind of conformed with that, or I was. But it's like it's more natural. We are more used to being in the shadow. And then I realized that, okay, so I'm more afraid to go out there and to shine and to see my value, to allow myself to see my own potential and to show it to others, than to see and show the parts of myself that I'm still having to work within myself. Because this kind of ongoing process has really been like a lot of inner deaths, two bigger ones, but of even identity of who I thought I was. And then understanding, okay, if I'm not this, then who am I now? And not really having to search for who I am, but allowing my identity and myself and my soul to be shown to me. Because who I am is not out there, it's within me. It happens to also be visible through others, as they are my mirrors, which was actually something very important, this mirror concept that I learned also in Romania in that training course.
And I have a question then. What are your qualities? What is in your light? Because I know that after the training course and after a workshop, you realized that, and you started actually to do things that you didn't do before. So what did you have to start to do? What did you have to do to practice your qualities?
That was really a well-played question. Like, seriously. Like, I just told you that the light is the most difficult to show, and then you're like, show me your lights. Tell me, like, specifically, which things? Like,
share only things that you feel comfortable with sharing.
Okay. Like, I was just like, so my lights, my qualities. Actually, I have a lot. I realize I have a lot. Right now, in this point of my life, I'm aware I have a lot of them. Even though I have this focus on still wanting to self-improve and always like, all the things I notice that are not okay, I want to improve them. But comparing to before, because when I was 12 and I had this depression and everything was happening in my outer world, which is actually a reflection of my inner world, like I felt from both worlds, I felt like I searched for nothing. Like I couldn't see a point of even existing, of what were we as human beings doing here. All these sort of things, I was having really these existential questions. So I really didn't know what was I doing, what could I do, until I understood, okay, I can listen to people. I like to listen to people. I can listen to people, and I always like to give advices. So yeah, I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna live for this. So that was what kept me alive back then. It was the only thing I found that I could actually do. I got like an anchor to be alive and to proceed on life because there was something. But now I know I'm much more aware of who I am, because back then I didn't know who I was. All this process allowed me to really acknowledge much more of who I am, even though, it's an ongoing process. Regarding my qualities, so if I notice, it's like I still do that thing that I was doing when I was 12. I'm still listening to people and giving them advice, which is something I just noticed recently. This is still happening, but in a different way, because now I became like a mentor and a therapist, and I'm doing it like professionally, which is also a change of career that happened. Something I didn't mention is that before this training course in Romania, I was a photographer and videographer. And from then on, I started taking more these courses about therapies and coaching and energy and personal development. So, and I have been in this stage of going from photography and video to being a therapist, and only recently I admitted, like, Joana, you are a therapist now. So I came from photography and video, but now I'm doing this. And recently I was like, oh, Joana, like, photography and video, of course you're gonna still make them, but for you. and again, I'm running away, like, you see what I'm doing, like, unconsciously, and I'm aware of what I'm doing, like, unconsciously, I'm running away from answering to your question. But at the same time, I'm aware, and I'm like, okay, let's go back to the question. Although all these points were important, but... And this is the thing when we are be aware of what we are doing with ourselves. When we are running away, when we are sabotaging, when we are going forwards, and acknowledging, and actually when we acknowledge, we can choose. We have the power to choose where to go next. We can use our free will and our personal power. So with my personal power, now I choose to answer to your question. So my qualities and my light are like actually being honest and real and authentic. Like, I have always been a very genuine person. Like, truth is really a big value I have. I would say, like, also this fact that I see the magic in things, you know, I just see magic everywhere. Everything is like, I don't know, I see sparkles of things, like, it's like I call it magic, but there was this one time I understood that these magic sparkles I see are actually love. And that was, whoa. I really like to give, but not in physical things. I'm not much a gifts like a person that gives gifts or things, unless I really feel it. I'm more like giving into words, and I see people, I read people, and I always like to say what I see. So I'm giving a lot in the sense that I help people to see themselves when I see my creativity, my spontaneity, this thing of creating things, of being able to actually feel like these inner feelings and just risking. It's like risking and go when I feel it and I don't know anything. Like, and this thing of trusting, you know, trusting my inner being when something calls me to be done, or when I know I should create something, and just this big trust that allows me to forget the fears and just go. You know, for instance, when I created my own podcasts, I never wanted to have a podcast. Even when people told me, I was like, no, that's not gonna happen. I'm a video person. I'm not gonna have a podcast. Like, no. Until there was one day I just had this click, and I kind of channeled this thing of making a podcast to for men's voices that are already also in this journey of self-awareness, and or also helping others for their voices to also be more heard, even to be more spread, for this kind of to be more contagious. I just knew I had to do it because that was a bigger calling, and I have this big calling towards men's work. I feel really much more like this men's questions, men's things. I'm like, and even in all the course I was taking in several parts of the world, I was like, but where are men? Like, they were almost none. And even when I was traveling, it was like, what? I always heard that traveling is threatening to women, is na-na-na. And all I see is basically women. I don't see men, basically. So where are them? And I always noticed this thing of, okay, men, like, women are really going forward in this process and opening the path, but it's your time as well. So I just had this thing, this idea, and it was so strong that I had to do it. Facing all my fears, facing all that I didn't want, because this thing, I just knew it. And when you know it, you know it. So I went forward with it, but of course, like, first episode was about me and my story and why did I relate to these things, because my relation with men's problems is like this. The way I connect with this is also the self-expression parts that I connect with men, like the way that they cannot cry or really express how they feel, otherwise they would be judged, and society really formed people in this way. So this is what I felt as well as growing up, this pain. So yeah, and the first episode was about this. But for instance, I can tell you that before launching the first episodes, in that night, I woke up and I was so afraid. I was so afraid of posting it in the next day, of publishing it, and everyone, because I would be exposed. I was gonna really be exposed to something that before I didn't want to do. Yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night super afraid, and I had to listen to the whole podcast to understand that, no, okay, Joana, this is super fun, it's amazing, it's super okay, it's not... and to be actually relaxed, and yeah, what I'm sharing, it's totally okay. And like, because my ego was so like in alarm, you know. But then I was like, no, it's okay, it's safe. But being aware of this allows us to find mechanisms to cope with these fears and to understand what should we do, and are those really real threatenings or not. And I published it, and it was amazing. And of course the concepts, because all these men's voices are together in the same place, and I think it's a very important work that some people said it was public service that I was doing by making this.
Thank you so much for sharing this story of yours, of your journey and men's podcasts and things you have to do. How do you feel about sharing this story?
As I told you, a big value I have is truth, is authenticity. And I know that by sharing this and by being vulnerable, I'm helping people, you know, because this will stay with people. This will remind, like, someone will remember about this when they need. And also it's like, the way I share myself is like this, authentically. It's like, you know, I'm not afraid to show, you know, my shadows, as I told you. So it's like, yeah. And I like to show myself like also in this raw way. Authenticity has to do with rawness. So it's important also to show not only a finished product, but to show the journey. That's what I like to do. And I do it also in my Instagram and the things I do, because I think we learn so much by sharing each other's processes, opening. And it's I think it's very important to not only like giving advice or something, but just showing, like, how was it for me? What happened and how did I deal with it? Because I know that when I listen to these stories from other people, it's amazing. I take things that I can use.
I really celebrate you for your courage and for your bravery to meet yourself and to show yourself and share yourself with others. It is really amazing and very inspiring.
I wasn't really acknowledging this was a thing to celebrate, my rawness, the way I show myself in order to encourage others. Yeah, that's a thing I should celebrate and actually notice. You just got me aware of something that I should like even to tell my inner child, right? Because back then she wasn't doing these things, she was blocked, and now she's doing all of this. So yeah, it's like now it becomes so normal, you know, that I wasn't even acknowledging this until he said it. So I will find a way to celebrate this.
I'm happy for that. And taking a breath and going to the two final questions. And I would like you to share one specific practice that is important to you. How you give yourself this courage, or how you work with yourself to open up these resources, new resources that you need to do the things that you need to do in life.
I would go with the one that actually was the starting of me listening to myself. Can I share two very small ones?
Okay, go for it.
Very small ones. So, first one, it's like, I call it vomit writing. It's something that really, really helps. It's like when you're in a mess, like mentally, no matter where you are in the world. And I started this when I was traveling, and I was solo traveling, and I had no one to, to process things that were not happening there but in home. And I started to put the pen on the paper and just write. I was not really writing before, and this was the beginning. And I think this is something amazing. Like when you are a mess or you're in a loop or something, just kind of force yourself. Because in those cases, when you are in those situations, you have to force yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to do anything because you don't feel like doing anything. So in those cases, just force yourself to put a pen in a paper. Even if you don't know what to write, just put it and start. And then things will start to appear, and just throw everything. It can be a process of half an hour, of 3 hours. The important is that you don't care about the way you write. It doesn't need to be beautiful. It can be a mess. But that you express it, that you transmute this energy into the paper, and that you only finish when you feel like your mind is free and clear. What I noticed from this is that after that, the reality I was in, the space I was in, just changed. Suddenly, I was feeling different and lighter and heavier. But yeah, it's like this process of just vomiting every word that comes. So no need to structure phrases or anything, just spit it out. And of course, in the process of passing to the paper, and putting these things, this mess into words and kind of phrases, even though they don't need to be correct, there is a process of connecting points. So it's very easy we easily start to have insights. So all the mess goes out, but the dots that connect and the insights, they stay. So you go cleaner and more focused.
So first practice that you're sharing is vomit writing. So just put your pen on the paper and just let yourself to write.
Mm-hmm. Like if you throw up everything that's in your mind, all the thoughts, into the paper, and then in the end you can even put the papers on the garbage. They don't matter. The importance is that you transmute this energy, that you, instead of being stuck in your head, just let it go in true words. And another practice is something I love a lot, which was what I learned also in reality craft, is like just put 1-3 musics. It's better if you don't know them, and if they don't have lyrics, but if they have is okay. But it's better if you don't know the music, just put a random music, and you go to a place where you have space to move. Close your eyes, you listen to the music, to the vibrations, to the rhythms. You kind of imagine putting your mind outside of the room you are in or the space you are in. And then it's like you just ask your body, like, what part of you wants to move? So, and let it show you. It can be like a tinkle or something. You will feel something in your body and you follow that point. You follow that point and it becomes a movement, it becomes a line. And then you listen to the other points and you follow it so the movement comes really from the body itself, because you are giving it time to express itself, as the body normally is ignored, right? So this time you're opening space for the body to express and do whatever it wants. And you allow it without any kind of judgment. You just allow your body and you follow it. You feel the impulse and you follow it. You feel the impulse and you follow it. And you have to hear it, to hear where is the impulse. So the movement is guided through the body and not through the mind. So the movement is guided through your soul, through the body, and not through the mind. And it allows your soul to express itself, your being to express itself, whatever needs to be expressed. And you can do it just like this, or you can focus on a specific emotion you are dealing with and dance that emotion. For instance, rage. If you are feeling rage and it's important to not project it into anyone, you can transmute it yourself, or by organizing a room, or by dancing it, giving it movement, letting it express and accept what comes. Because it's not going to be beautiful, but it doesn't have to be. It just has to be in authenticity, in rawness. And So giving space for your own rawness and becoming comfortable with it. It really allows, it's really good for emotions process and for to deal with emotions and to then understand what are they trying to tell. So those would be my 2 practices.
Great, thank you. So one is writing down and giving your kind of your thoughts, putting your thoughts out, and the other one is inviting your body to move and to show
Exactly.
what's inside. Thank you so much for sharing these 2 practices. And the final question to you in the end of this podcast is, how would you describe wholeness is for you in 3 words?
Can it be a phrase?
Let it be a phrase.
For me, wholeness, it's like acknowledging how complete I am and assuming it. It's wholeness is seeing my own wholeness. That is a reflection of the world's wholeness. In our interconnectedness, we are whole by each other. We are all like individually whole, but together we become also whole.
Thank you so much for being the first guest in the podcast, and thank you very much for your raw sharing and your true, authentic sharing in these minutes.
Thank you, and I was really grateful for you to have remind about me, and because it means that what I'm doing with me in my inner process and also with others, the ones I'm helping, it's valuable. And I hope these words make some clicks in someone and can encourage them to also step forward into travel within themselves.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you want to dig deeper into the Art of Wholeness, make sure you follow us on Facebook or on our Instagram page. Details in the description section below. The podcast Stories of Wholeness is part of the Art of Wholeness, innovative tools and practices for inclusion of vulnerable young people. This project was possible through the Erasmus Plus program, a European Union initiative.